I was born here in Lexington, lived here pretty much all my life. There are a few things we take seriously in these parts. There's Kentucky basketball and Kentucky bourbon. I'm a fan of both. But most of all, this is horse country. The newborns arrive this time of year, and I don't care how long you've been around, there's something magical about seeing a foal gallop for the first time. It's a sight that fills you with hope. Hope for that horse to be a champion someday, maybe even on the first Saturday in May. For longer than anyone can remember, the world's finest racehorses have been bred here. The farms around Lexington are home to stallions worth tens of millions of dollars, commanding stud fees in the hundreds of thousands. It's the sport of kings, and trust me, the horses here live like royalty too, on farms more beautiful than you can imagine. There's nowhere quite like it. So welcome to Kentucky, to Lexington, to a place we're proud to call the horse capital of the world.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, how are you doing?
All right, good to see you again.
Scott Calder works for Coolmore, the company that paid untold millions for American Pharaoh's breeding rights.
Well, Scott, his coat is still as shiny as it ever was, and he looks pretty fit for a horse that's been retired from the track, but he has gained some weight.
Yeah, he has. So he's put on about 200 pounds since he got here. Obviously, when he first arrived, he was a couple of days after running arguably the best race of his life, so he was not carrying an ounce of fat. But you know, here at the farm, they're out in the paddocks every morning. Obviously, the exercise regimen's not as strict as it was, so they put on a few pounds just like anybody else, I guess. And yeah, he's in fantastic condition at the moment. He's really matured and strengthened, and he looks fantastic. He's at the top end of the horse business, as he deserves to be. You know, what he achieved is so unique. He kind of progressed to the top tier of stallions from the very beginning, which is fair enough.
And do you have lots of people that come just to see him?
Yeah. We certainly used to offer tours, but they weren't as popular as they are now for obvious reasons.
And even in a place where there are so many famous horses and accomplished horses, he's still the star of the show.
Yeah. There's nothing quite like a Triple Crown winner, that's for sure.
He's a reminder of why many folks around here fell in love with the sport in the first place. He's a Kentucky bred. We got to watch him win the Derby on our state's proudest day. He won the Breeders' Cup Classic just down the road, and now he's come home. It's not fair to expect any of American Pharaoh's offspring to do what he did on the racetrack, but the horse business is fueled by the hope that they might. You could say that hope is Kentucky's greatest natural resource, and this time of year, it's in endless supply. The Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland Racecourse, located about an hour east of Louisville. It's an idyllic track in the middle of Kentucky horse country, and opening weekend at Keeneland, highlighted by the Bluegrass Stakes, is a big deal for folks around here.
Mike, we've been to racetracks all over the world, but when you come to Keeneland, it's kind of like coming home, isn't it?
I love it. I mean, you know, you've been here longer than me, but I've worked every meet here since 1972. So this is just, you know, every spring you come back here, and right away you got the bluegrass. You just get into the mood for spring and for the Kentucky Derby.
Tom, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, Mark.
Hey, great to see you.
Oh, yeah, it's always great. How are you? Good. Hey, it's been a great spring, hasn't it?
My first trip to Keeneland was in 1956 with my father, who took me to see the great racehorse Nashua being paraded around the track one final time before his retirement. I was 12 years old. I saw my first horse race 3 years later when I joined a few of my varsity football teammates for a trip to Keeneland on a crisp fall afternoon. My first job after graduating from college was reading race results from tracks around the country over the radio and helping in the press box at Keeneland. I've had a seat in the press box ever since.
Hey, Mike.
How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Doing good.
See ya.
Good to see you.
My spot over here. Hey, Cameron.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm well. Hi, everybody. This is my spot. I guess they'll keep me in one spot so they can keep an eye on me. Here we go. There we go. Investments. Well, business as usual. We'll be throwing these away.
Seems like my career, my life really is intertwined with Keeneland. First of all, how can you imagine a better setting? Beautiful place, great people, nice people. I fell in love with it. When I got the job at the NBC affiliate in Lexington, one of the programs I did was called Today at Keeneland, which was recreating the races every night, a replay of the races without any sound, so I had to make up the calls of the race. And so I became kind of well known in the horse racing circles. And when Keeneland needed an announcer for the sales, they asked me, and I went into the empty pavilion, had a tryout, and got the job. The sales pavilion at Keeneland is adjacent to the track. And last year alone, it handled $500 million in horse sales. My job back in 1972 was to announce the horses as they entered the pavilion, then let the head auctioneer handle the bidding. Ryan Mahan has been Keeneland's head auctioneer for the past 16 years.
Oh, people probably don't realize how many billions of dollars have come through this sales ring over the years.
Oh, sure. Just since I've been doing it, it's been billions. And to think, unlike a Monet or a Renoir that you look at on a wall, we're bringing 1,000-pound animals in here, livestock, hoping for the best. And last year, just yearlings alone, $288 million.
To breed you the best, you've got to come to Kentucky. And to sell at the best, you come here to Keeneland, right?
Indeed you do.
I got an idea. Let's sell a horse.
Let's do that.
Tip number one is a blue colt by American Pharoah out of whatchamacallit by Unbridled. He's a half-brother to 5 stakes winners. He's the first yearling to sell by the Triple Crown winner, American Pharoah.
Thank you, Tom. And who get 500? 500 here in the ring, 102, 100 in the ring, 203, and 304, 300 here in the ring, 400, 500, and 500, 600, 700, 800, 700, 809, 900, now million, 9 you want to do it, 1 million, 100 and more, I have $1 million. Good luck.
One of the great traditions after a day of racing at Keeneland is making your way down the street to the Thoroughbred Club of America, where we gather to count our winnings or lick our wounds, and also keep betting on the West Coast races.
If it's all the same to you guys, can you point that somewhere else?
You don't want to be seen associating with me? Is that the deal?
There are a few things we do well in this part of the country. There are Kentucky Thoroughbreds, and of course, Kentucky Bourbon. And as the story goes, the two are closely related. The streams that run along the bluegrass pastures here are filtered over the limestone bedrock beneath the soil. And some people will tell you it's the limestone that makes strong thoroughbreds and smooth bourbon. Elizabeth McCall has a job that sounds too good to be true. She's a master taster for Woodford Reserve.
Some of the things that make Kentucky horses great also makes Kentucky bourbon great. The water to start with, right?
Yes, the water is so important. It's got great nutrients in it, like calcium, that really gives horses great strong bones, but it also gives great flavor to bourbon.
And are there lots of other Kentucky products that go into making bourbon?
Oh, you know, we got
Kentucky
some
corn
that we put into our product. We've got just the love of the people here at Woodford Reserve.
That means a lot.
It's really
And the love of the people that are going to drink it, too.
Exactly.
Ah, good job.
All right, look at that color. Straight out of the barrel. This is going to be around 135 proof, so sip lightly.
Ooh, yes. That gets your attention.
Yeah, you can taste it's a little more astringent. So when you taste our finished product, it's been filtered and cut down with water. This is raw straight out of the barrel, so you got those barrel fines in there.
How about we go taste the finished product?
Yes, that sounds good. So a good thing to mention, when you're not a bourbon drinker all the time, and even if you are a well-seasoned bourbon drinker,
I know some of those.
like you may be, it's good to just stop and sip and savor, and you give it a good waft under your nose, and then you take little sips, and we call it like the 3-sip process. The first sip's kind of warming up the palate, second sip, you're starting to get the flavor, and third is where you're really enjoying it and focusing on that finish. So what do you think?
I taste vanilla. Is that imparted by the barrel?
Oh yeah, we're getting lots of good vanilla notes, caramel that's coming from the barrel.
Caramel, yes, You may be from Ohio, but you're now the quintessential Kentuckian because you not only are a bourbon taster, but you're a horsewoman.
Yes, that's right. I've had horses in my blood since I was born, and but it wasn't in my family. It's just something that was in me. So yeah, I still have my horse.
What's his name?
Cody Co. He's 22-year-old,
Oh, wow.
off the track thoroughbred.
Really?
Yep. So he raced, but he was not a good racer.
But he's a good rider.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, here's to Cody Co.
Cody Co.
There's one more thing that Kentuckians are passionate about. In addition to horses and bourbon, there's basketball. And no college basketball program has more victories than the University of Kentucky. The school has won 8 national championships under the leadership of Coach John Calipari.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Coach Cal.
How are you?
I'm well. How about you?
You're doing good. You look good.
I'm doing fine for an old fella.
No, you're looking good. You're looking good.
We've been talking a lot about Kentuckians' love of racehorses and horse racing. But if there's one thing Kentuckians are more passionate about even than that, well, that's there too, but Kentucky basketball. When you came to Lexington, were you prepared for the madness of Big Blue Nation?
No, and I don't care what anybody tells you. Until you walk through the doors and you look around, you're like, what in the world? The people in this state, they want this to be the gold standard, just like horse racing in our horse business here.
You obviously have a fine eye for talent here on the basketball court. Do you think you might have a fine eye for a horse? Are you ever going to want to go in the horse business?
If I pick a horse to win, don't go with that horse. I'm like the worst. But you know, I'm not. It's kind of like I know what my deal is, and it's basketball. I'm not into the horse business. I'm not, and only because, and I'm not into the bourbon business for the same reason. It's not my specialty, but I enjoy it. I enjoy both.
When recruits come into Lexington, do you take advantage of these horse surroundings and take them perhaps to Keeneland if Keeneland's
We
running?
do take them to Keeneland, and the excitement around Keeneland, when we bring them over there, they get a chance to see, because when you walk them through the paddock and they're there and the fans know they're there, oh my gosh, it's like an eruption, and they're like, what is going on? I said, this is just a small part of being a player here.
From the titles earned on the hardwood to the oak barrels of carefully distilled bourbon, Kentucky's finest products are always proudly on display, but never more so than on the first Saturday of May. I attended my first Derby as a college student in 1964. I had seen Northern Dancer win the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland and fell in love with the gritty little colt. I followed him to Churchill Downs. After he won the Derby, Northern Dancer added the Preakness, and I just had to be in New York as he went for the Triple Crown. The grandstand at Belmont Park was being rebuilt, so the Belmont Stakes was run at Aqueduct. I distinctly remember looking down into the paddock and seeing the late Chris Schenkel broadcasting on national TV. Never dreaming that one day I too would be broadcasting an attempt at a Triple Crown. Alas, Northern Dancer was beaten by Quadrangle that day, but went on to be the most influential sire in modern thoroughbred history. But 1964 started my love affair with the Derby. The 70s were a glorious time for horse racing with 3 Triple Crown winners. Secretariat, Seattle Slew, and Affirm.
Takes command by a head.
They all started their run in the Derby, and I was there to cover their races on local TV.
Traditions of thoroughbred racing. Secretariat, 22-length lead.
I remember people saying the Triple Crown had become too easy. Little did we know it would be 37 years before the next one. Now, looking back at all those derbies, some have etched themselves into my memory.
And they're off.
Two of the most touching derbies came with Ferdinand and Unbridled. In 1986, Ferdinand won the Derby for the Sunshine Boys.
Ferdinand on the rail.
Trainer Charlie Whittingham and jockey Bill Shoemaker, both then in the twilight of their distinguished careers. And in 1990, as Unbridled charged down the stretch to victory, trainer Carl Nafsker made everlasting television history, celebrating with the horse's owner, Francis Genner.
You want to Kentucky Derby? Oh, Winter, I love you.
Welcome to Churchill Downs, everyone. I'm Tom Hammond. Happy to be here for Derby 127.
The most sentimental moment for me personally was in 2001, my first year to host on NBC.
A $5 million bonus awaits the horse that can sweep the Derby, Preakness, and Belmont.
Monarchos won the Derby for trainer John Ward,
And Monarchos have won the Kentucky Derby!
with whom I had attended both high school and college. There's a saying John recalled after the race: if you're from Kentucky and you win the Derby, they paint it on you and it never wears off.
I can only say that this is one of the greatest moments for me.
No question about the greatest Derby winner I've seen, Secretariat in 1973. It's difficult to believe now, but many horsemen were skeptical of his ability to run 1.25 miles.
Secretariat on the outside to take the lead.
But run it he did, setting the record that still stands to this day.
Secretariat just broke the old Kentucky Derby record.
And American Pharaoh in 2015, using a tough run in the Derby to springboard to the first Triple Crown that many racing observers had ever seen.
They're off in the Belmont Stakes.
His victory in the Belmont was one of the most exciting moments I've broadcast in what is now almost 50 years in the business.
He did it! American Pharaoh has ended the 37-year drought.
The horse doesn't know if he's royally bred or cost a ton at the sales.
335 and Pope 335,000.
Many wealthy individuals have spent much of their lives and millions of their dollars in unsuccessful attempts to win the Derby. Then along comes a horse like Mind That Bird, who rode to Churchill Downs from New Mexico in a trailer pulled by a pickup truck driven by his trainer, and promptly won the Derby at 50-1.
And a spectacular upset. Mind That Bird has won an impossible result here.
The Derby is many things: a huge party, a fashion show, and a chance for a betting coup. But for me, it's about the horses. The Derby is the great equalizer. Reputations don't count. It's about the best horse during those 2 minutes on the first Saturday in May. In Kentucky, this is our rite of spring. Around the potential of these horses, friendships are made, careers are built, and traditions are carried on. It's in our veins, like May sunshine, good bourbon, and fast horses. And for me, it doesn't get any better than that.